All right, welcome everybody. I am very excited this week to have my good friend, Mr. Eric Pitts on. And he is a missionary in Turkana, Kenya. And we were just talking, we first met 11 years ago, and we can talk about all that and how that happened. But I think you're going to really benefit from his story. And, this episode is a little bit different than the norm. So Eric is not a real estate investor. So my mission is real estate for income, lifestyle, and impact. And this is more focused on the impact. So the results are what you can do, the changes you can bring about from that income and investing. And so Eric's got a lot of great information and a great story to share, and he's got some good tips on how to raise private money in ministry. It's called Raising Financial Support, but he has done a lot of it, and so I know you'll benefit in many ways. So that's a really long intro, but welcome, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Glad to have you on. So it is really hard to believe that it was 11 years ago. My daughter is 11 years old, and we were in Nairobi when we first met, and my family was staying in Nairobi because my daughter was born, and you were coming out of Maasai land, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was doing my internship there, kind of my first real experience, sport raising, real experience of actually, being out of the country other than just a couple weeks for mission trips. So it was a big time, and it was, and as you leave Kenya, but Kenya never really leaves you. So it's one of those things where it really said, okay, God, I guess this is what I'm doing. And a lot happened right about that part of my life. So it was a good time to be there. It was good to meet you. Because you're the first person that I heard really talk about Turkana. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, I never want to go to Turkana. It's so terrible. I love it. And it's hot, but that's fine. And it's dry, but I miss it now. Not much fishing there. But you get to do a lot of other things.
Yeah, yeah. Hard to fish much in the desert for sure, but there are lots of good things to do. I remember one time I played golf out at our house where we were just hitting the golf ball. Me and Maurice hitting the golf ball around, trying to be the first one to hit a certain tree off in the distance. But anyways. Yeah. So, for people not familiar with Kenya, a lot of times in Kenya, you talk about, instead of maybe a city or a state, you talk more about a tribal region, right? So Turkana is the tribal region in the northeast corner where the Turkana tribe lives. And, each area of Kenya has a majority of different tribal groups living there. So, all right. So what was your story? Because for people unfamiliar with being a cross-cultural missionary, how do you get involved in that? Or what was your path to becoming a missionary?
Yeah, you're right. It seems so natural to me. And it's really not, because I remember, I forget who it was. It was like a machinist. And I said, "Man, how do you get into being a machinist?" He's like, "Well, how do you get into being a missionary?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a good point." So for me, my family, I always call it a weird family business. We have about 20 Bible degrees in my family. But most of us aren't, actually all of us besides me and a few other, maybe 2 or 3 others, went cross-cultural. A lot of them are pastors or professors, Sunday school teachers. So I was kind of introduced to the Bible college life really young, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do that. My dad did that. My grandma did that. So I was going to be different. But, I ended up going to Bible college, and I was going to start a youth ministry. Um, and I went to one youth conference, and I realized it was not for me. It was not. It was just like, because there's so much high energy, and like you have to woo, and I just didn't. I was like, I can't see myself doing this. So really, what happened was some missionary kids, which both me and Chad are fond of, since we have some of our own. Um,
Right.
you know, they talked me into it. You'd be a great missionary, because of this and this reason. I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to do that. And then what really hit me, I left Bible college for a year thinking, I'm done, I'm not going to do the ministry. And I visited Mexico, of all places, and I said, okay, God, if you want me to be a missionary, show me, which is a dangerous prayer. But you do those sometimes. And I saw people healed through prayer. I saw like what my first time experiencing like a true missionary people relationship. So it wasn't a, hey, I'm building you a house and see you later, or hey, I'll take care of this immediate need. It was, this guy knew these people and how well they're working together. And I came back, and the same day I came back, my application for my Bible college came back, said, okay, God, I'll go. And really, it's been kind of a thing where, like, as far as ending up in Kenya, I thought I was going to Russia. I told God I was going to Russia, which is also dangerous. And every person that asked said, well, go to Kenya, go to Kenya, go to Kenya. So really what that looks like is you just get in contact with missions organizations if you want to be part of a team, and they really do make it, I guess, as easy as you can make something like that. So yeah, I did that, and finally CMF and I meshed real well. That's who I'm with. That's who Chad was with as well. And I've worked with them since then, off and on. So that's what's even crazier is I'm like, man, I've been involved in Kenya for 11 years. It doesn't seem like that long ago.
A long time.
And I guess my initial motivation was I wanted to go where no one wanted to go. And that's why I had such an aversion to Kenya. Because so many missionaries in Kenya, I'm like, God, I want to go to Russia. No one wants to go to Russia. Well, as Chad could tell you, no one really wants to go to Turkana either. So God used that aspect in a way I didn't see coming. So we're not the most popular location. It's a hard place.
It's a harsh.
If you love it, you love it.
And
So,
there's the life is difficult, right?
yeah.
And I remember, in preparing to move there, the commitment was 4 years.
Right.
So you had this mindset that you're going in, you're going to do 4 years, you'll get to come home, recoup a little bit for furlough and go back. And then I arrived, and it was like 2 weeks in, I heard that the average stay of a missionary was like 6 weeks because people bailed out so quick in Turkana. I was like, whoa, wait a second. So it was a little eye-opening.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, and like, how old were your kids when you went? Your oldest two were around, right? Or is it just your oldest?
So yeah, our oldest two. Our oldest he just turned 3 when we got there,
okay.
And then Aiden, he would have been 6 months.
Okay, yeah. So I have 3 kids, and obviously, well, I mean, obviously, but I have a wife, and I wish she could be here, but it's difficult because we have 3 kids. One's 4, one's 2, and one is 4 weeks. So, 4 months. 4 months. Yeah. But that was a big thing, taking your kid and the grandparents at the airport. You're taking, Desmond was 10 months old. So that was probably the hardest part. My parents couldn't say much because they went to Bible college. So they kind of, oh, okay, our son's a missionary. But that was still a point, not a point of tension, but it's still hard. That's probably the hardest part, is being away from family.
Yeah. I remember, my parents were believers, and they had that internal struggle. They were very supportive of us for the work,
Right.
and they knew the importance, but they didn't want us to be away and their grandkids to miss that window of time with them.
Right.
And really at the time, I kind of understood it, but now as my kids are getting older, I'm like,
Right.
whoa, I'm all for them being passionate about missions, but I'm beginning to see that internal struggle if they were to feel called to that. So it's only natural.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. It is a struggle for sure.
So you live in Lodwar, the let's say town
Yeah.
of Lodwar. Okay, in Turkana region of Kenya. What is your ministry, or how would you summarize your ministry?
Well, it goes every which direction as things change. Lately, I've been involved in many things such as leadership, which is what I really kind of consider myself a coach anymore. Um, I help people find out their goals, and then I help them meet that with their resources and with their own abilities, which isn't always popular, um, because sometimes I have the means to make things happen faster. So sometimes it's like, well, can't you just maybe do something, and that's natural. I mean, we feel the same way. If we can buy something, that'll just give it to us, we'll do it rather than work for it. So I consider myself a coach when I work with pastors. I do a lot of things with conductive Bible studies, which I'll try to unpack that real quick. It's a simple Bible study, really, is all it is. Is you open the Word of God, you get to a scripture, and you just ask 4 questions. What does it say about God? What does it say about man? How can I obey this week? And who will I tell? And it's so simple that anyone can do it. We have people who are illiterate who are just knocking it out of the park. People who they memorize the verse and then they go out and they just say the verse to their friends and they ask those 4 questions. And it's something so simple, but we've seen such growth with that. In the first 8 months, we had 1,000 new believers, and 13 new churches. So, and also to unpack what churches mean, because I know when we hear churches, we think, buildings, we think bands, pastors. We have the pastor, but a lot of times it's just under a tree, the meeting of maybe 20, 25 people. So when you hear 13 churches, in my opinion, it still is fantastic, but just to help unpack what that looks like. So when you see stuff like that happening and then it keeps growing and growing and growing, what then became my role was helping the local pastors do those things without me doing that for them, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of what I've been focusing on a lot of lately. That, and then also working with leadership, helping them recognize the problems that they face, and then kind of pulling back when they ask me to help. Well, how can you help with that? So does that make any sense? Does that help kind of
Yeah,
clear it
very
up?
much. And I think there's 2 key things. Sometimes people who aren't used to ministry or aren't familiar with it kind of have negative connotations with it. And one is that that you may be going in and convincing somebody to do something, which is nowhere near the truth. The truth is that you're going in and you're helping people address needs they already feel, right?
Yeah.
They recognize the need. You're just helping them with it, helping them address it. And another one is some people who aren't familiar with it think that you go in and just dump money. Or you do a development project and that's going to solve the problem. And there are many examples of that. in Kenya, but that's not at all the work that you do or the work that Christian Missionary Fellowship does. So, a lot of time,
Right.
I remember from me, which, I love hearing your perspective on how you're helping, because for
Yeah.
me, when I was working with church leaders, it would have moved so much faster if I could have just spent the money and done it for them, right?
Yeah.
But a huge thing is the sustainability. And
Yeah.
if we build a ministry that way, as soon as we're gone, that ministry will end.
Yep.
So, and there's no real point in building a ministry like that, at least in my
Yeah.
eyes. So,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge point.
Yeah. I mean, I would say obviously maybe no one really knows me, but that's where my heart is the sustainability of not just the projects that help people with physical things, but also the spiritual things. Um, how do we get stronger leadership? Well, if you're always waiting for the next person to come off the plane, and the same goes for us. And I really try to do this a lot, where because it's always think, oh yeah, they think that people come here, but we do the same thing. When I go to church, on Sundays, I'm getting that piece of knowledge, and then that's helping my life. Where the same thing is over there. If you could help them cut out the middleman and help themselves, for lack of a better term, I don't love that one. But if you can, help them get to a point where they go, oh, I can do this myself, and I want to do it myself. And that's really the problem that we face in the States and around the world. And I think that lines up well with investments too.
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't. That is a issue with humanity. No
Sure. Yeah.
specific region or people.
No.
And interestingly, there was a book that I found when I was in Nairobi one time. I think it was my fourth year, and it was a real estate investing book. It was one of those
Really.
like audio books that you find on the street corner,
Yeah.
and I used it for ministry. Even now I use the concepts for real estate, but
Right.
the book was Cash Flow Quadrants by Robert Kiyosaki. So
Hmm.
any real estate investors have probably heard of Robert Kiyosaki, but the concept is that you can go through a progression in business from being an employee to starting your own business by yourself and being self-employed. And then if you grow your business, you'll build a small business that operates without you.
Right.
Eventually it can become passive and you're an investor. And so that when I first heard the book, that equated to
Yeah.
the ministry, and then
Great. Do it.
yeah, I didn't want it to be like a ministry where it would be like I was self-employed, where if I left, whether that be to go to the city, for the kids to see a doctor or whatever, that the ministry
Right.
stopped because I wasn't there. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to build the systems and sustainability so that it ran like a business, so that whether I was there or not, there were enough people involved and there were enough systems that the work was still getting done. So,
Yeah, and that's the best feeling that I've gotten really is I get a call from one of our guys who work at Cephas. You remember Cephas? So
yeah,
Cephas, I don't know if you know this, he's knocking out of the park with this, and we're really working with him um, as kind of our main coach. So we put a lot of coaching into him, um, and I get a call from him or a WhatsApp message. Hey, we just got back from the other side of the lake. We did one of the trainings, and I'm in America. So, and
yeah,
that was still funded partially by us. But, and I remember the first time I didn't go when I said, you guys go do it by yourself. Are you sure? Yeah, I'll drop you off. You do it. And then three people got baptized. I'm like, well, it's a good thing I didn't go, So you have I think that might be the hardest part of ministry is knowing when to pull back and you have that kind of drive. And same with business. I got to be there. I got to do this. I got to have my hands on it. But then you're sitting back kind of humbled, waiting for 3 or 4 days while there's people working on your curriculum, working with the stuff that you have, and you have no control over it. And people ask you, "What are you doing today?" You're like, "Well, I'm just waiting, waiting and praying and seeing what goes on." And then the benefits of it have been outstanding because we had like 3 trainings go when no missionary was present. So that was cool. That's what I'm really excited about, is building onto that and hoping that network kind of grow of Bible studies and trainings.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I remember when I struggled with it somewhat too, and I felt like I needed to travel and do the
Yeah.
teaching. And then I had 3 guys that were really working closely with me. And eventually I just said, you guys can go do the training. And at first they traveled on their own and taught together.
Right.
And I was like, the response was so much better,
It is.
And then they started traveling individually. And so it was 3 times the
Right.
number being taught. And it was so much more effective. And
Yeah.
I wish I would have learned that lesson for business, because then I came back and started a business, and I started doing it all myself again. And it took
Right.
years until I really hired enough people that everything flows
Yeah.
without me. But it is a struggle either way. But I think that's awesome that you're able to see fruits. While you're in the States. You've been in the States, what, 8 months, something like that, 7, 8
Yeah.
months,
Six. I don't
somewhere
know.
in
With
there.
everything that's
Yeah, with
time when we talked
coronavirus,
about
it feels like
March
3
was like 4 months. So
So the fact that you're in the States and the work is still continuing on, people are being impacted,
yeah, it's
that's
cool.
huge.
Really cool.
So what is your life like in Turkana?
Well, that's the hard part, is when you're busy, it feels really good, and then like what we just talked about, when you pull back, like, okay, it's a little bit, why am I here? Sometimes you feel like that. Okay, why? And then all of a sudden these big returns come, and you get through that. But I think you might be able to respond to this too, because it really is like super high highs. Like, oh, I'm so glad I'm here and God's here. And then next minute it's like, okay, where's the plan?
Yeah.
Like, but you live in that continuum, and really, I mean, it's a different life. I wake up pretty early and I go to bed pretty late. But my day to day is different every day. A lot of times, you think you have nothing going on, and everything happens that one day. The next day you have everything planned and nothing happens.
Or if
But
it's rain, nothing happens.
yeah,
The roads are washed
yeah,
out, and
yeah, you get stuck between 2 rivers. I experienced that for the first time 2 weeks before we left, where I had to sleep in the car overnight. So, but as far as like differences from here to there, a lot of it actually kind of reminded me of this whole COVID-19 situation. Cook from home every day. You don't get to see as many people as you would usually see in the States. You're just kind of isolated. You do a lot of home projects when you have time off. I do a lot of reading, research, but really it's just we live in the desert, which I don't think we've mentioned that yet. Our road, we have about, now in town, believe it or not, Chad, we have about 5 miles of paved road. So
wow.
other than that, though, once you get out, that was one of the biggest things for me. How are you guys finding where you're going? You follow the tracks. Where are the tracks?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm better at that kind of thing. But it's interesting because a lot of it is family time. You get a lot more family time in Kenya, personal, like close family. You don't get as much cousin time or grandma and grandpa time. But that's one of the benefits to me, is I get to have dinner with my family every night, unless I'm out for a week at a time.
Yeah. Sure. So Yeah, if anybody wants to look up, pictures or images of Turkana, there are a lot of pictures that have been taken. And it is a desert region, so there's a lot of sand, some acacia trees. You get some palm trees along the dry riverbeds. Um, if it rains, you have some grass spring up for the
Right.
livestock because I mean, it is kind of a miracle that all the livestock live out there when there's really not that much vegetation. Um, there's a lot of beautiful views along Lake Turkana.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It is
amazing
gorgeous
views.
place.
So, our one house that we lived in there in Kangagate was fairly close to the lake, so we could drive
Yeah.
maybe 40 minutes to the lake, swim. And when I look at the pictures now, I'm like, man, that's beautiful. That's really amazing. It looks so peaceful. But when you think about as a parent of young children and you're swimming in water where there's, a very high population of crocodiles and you
Right.
know, it's not the relaxing scene that that comes across in the
I'll say.
picture. So there are some challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. There are plenty of challenges. Like a rainy day is like a snow day, a real snow day, not like a Florida snow day, but like a day when you can't go anywhere for like sometimes, depending where you are, you might be stuck for 3 or 4 days. So, I mean,
Right.
generally, your pace of life is much slower. And that's something I miss. And I don't know I've heard that from a lot of people. I miss the pace of life. But once again, it's the same thing with the photos. You don't miss the pace of life sometimes when you're living in it.
Yeah.
Because you're
That's
like, man,
completely
it'd be nice if I
true.
could slow down, if I could be there. But then there you're like, I wish everything would speed up a little.
I know. When I was there, I wanted the work to move forward so much faster, but we had
Yeah,
evenings, with nothing going on, and I just played Legos with the kids, and had
yeah,
all this great time together, which we still talk about. And here, I can go with work as fast as I want,
yep,
but it's really hard to slow down all the other social things, to get an evening
yeah.
where there's nothing going on when kids are in all their sports and activities is really hard. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I think that's something that's true about my life and maybe yours too. Is I feel like I'm in a constant state of missing something. I miss Kenya for this, and when I'm in America, well, man, I wish I could do this. I feel like that's a big part of my life. Is kind of seeing the good and the bad in both at the same time, and kind of feeling in the middle of reality,
yeah,
in my own reality.
yeah. I was talking to a coaching client earlier today, and he was talking about um, he's working, a whole bunch of hours on real estate, which is different from his W-2 job where he had set hours, but right now, he's not getting the pay that he wanted from real
Right.
estate yet. And I was, trying to encourage him to just lean into it. It may be a painful part, but it's also a really rewarding part that
Yep.
you can build your business as fast as you want. And really, when I was in Kenya, I wish I would have leaned into the positives more than missing,
Yeah.
or struggling with the negatives. Um, but I think that's also human nature too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's easy to talk about, but it's harder to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, that's
Oh, go
yeah. Go
ahead.
ahead. That's fine. Got a
So,
lag.
slight lag. So, we've talked about kind of what your work is, what your lifestyle is, some of the
Yeah.
struggles, with living that far away.
Mm.
Um, when I think about it now, I hadn't thought about this before we started talking, but when my grandfather died, I heard about it 3 or 4 days later when I got to cell phone range. And
Right.
there are in some ways, you don't feel that disconnected, but then in other times, you can feel very disconnected, even
Yeah.
with technology today. So there are real
Yeah.
struggles with it. But from your perspective and in your experience, what is the reward, or what impact are you seeing day to day in your daily life and with all the people that you're working with?
Yeah, that's really what keeps it going. And I thought about this past couple of days. I've tried to think through this, and really a lot of it is a sense of calling. Um, and I know that's like such a vague thing, but there's been times when you get to that part and you're like, why am I doing this? And luckily, I have a great wife, and she goes, because we're supposed to be here. And you go, yeah, I know. And you have to work that, and then so, the next day I'll be saying that to her. It goes kind of goes back and forth. But really, I love it. I love my job. It's hard, but I've not found anything like it where I can let God use me to help others. Let God use them, and that's really what it's all about. And a lot of with this whole new method we're doing is kind of freeing, because one of the things we do is we don't ever force anyone to do anything, like you mentioned before. But with this new method, it's like we don't want to do that. And I go, okay, well, I'm going to work with these people over here, and when we align, I will still work with you. And when you give someone that kind of message, that they'll either decide to go with you or they won't. But it's not you pulling at them. Hey, if you do this, then that, And I think that has helped me a lot and helped me enjoy it, because once I gave up that control, I mean, that really is when things started happening. Um, so
That's
as far as my why do I do it, it really is a sense of calling. It's a sense of being there, a sense of really, when I get down to the point, really the benefits really outweigh the negatives for me. The benefits of doing what I've wanted to do since I guess I was 19, um, and being able to live kind of an odd life so long that it feels like normal life. So it's just become it's become part of me, and I really am loving the coaching aspect, um, and seeing it happen has been really neat. Being able to, and also those calls that we get from Cephas, from other people, hey, it's still happening, it's still going on. Um, the partnership with the guys in the ground is another big one too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think so much is just relationship,
Yep.
and people knowing you care about them, you have their interests at heart, you just want to help them get where they want
Yeah.
to get to. That's huge. Just thinking about Cephas, I remember our first year, 11 years ago, he came and was helping me learn the language, because he was from around where we were living at the time. And then, we helped him go to high school once he got out of uh, primary grades. And so when he sends pictures or hear updates from you about what he's doing, isn't
Yeah.
that's awesome to see how he has grown personally, how he's
Yeah.
grown spiritually, and he's happier, more content. He's helping other people, having a big impact in his community, um, and I think that's awesome. I don't think there's any way you can put a price on that kind of impact in a person's life and a family's life and a
Yeah.
community. So, are there?
Yeah. And that's huge. I mean, that really is what it's all about. And for example, Cephas, as you know, he has that. Maybe a temper is a bad word, but I mean, he has that point where if something's right, he's on it, and he's not gonna let it go. And that's not me. I'm more of, okay, let's talk this through thing. And when you have those people that their strengths are your strengths, and I mean, I've had times where I thought maybe he went a little too hard on that person because of the way they're talking about whatever it was. They come back around, and I'm like, wow, God really used him in a way that I couldn't be used. So, like you're saying, it goes back to relationship.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, are there other examples of, fruits in the field, of individuals' lives or communities, how you've seen changes from your work?
Yeah, I mean, one aspect we work with is the farms, which is an agricultural project. I won't get too much into it because I'm more focused on the spiritual side of what that looks like. I don't get into the nuts and bolts of digging wells, um, but more of helping Bible studies happen there. So that's been a big focus. It all was originally started to be a place where Bible studies could meet, and that's kind of been just forgotten over the time of missionaries being absent. So seeing the changes in the people's hearts at the farms have been really huge. That's been something that's been really neat to see. Um, Seeing a desire for independence rather than interdependence has been huge. And I know that you'll know that. But that's one of the biggest struggles that we face, and I'm sure that your family faced too, is that balance of dependency and being independent in a culture that dependency is a good thing. It's good to be dependent on each other. But seeing and hearing from other people, hey, we want to be sustainable. So when you're gone, this can continue on. That's one of the biggest things. That's one of my favorite things I've seen. And it was right before I left. It made it really hard to leave because all this really cool stuff happened. Like that month I'm packing up my house. But hearing people say from different ministries, even the chain ministry that's going on now that you helped start off, they're saying, we want to make sure we're sustainable. So when you leave, we can continue on. And it's not missionaries starting that conversation. So that's, to me, that's huge. That's once you get through that, it opens the door to so many things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember the first time I read Stephen Covey's, what is it, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And in there, he talks about the kind of 3 levels where you should in your life progress from dependency, as though a child dependent on your parents, to
Right.
being independent and you can do everything on your own without anybody's help. And then the third and highest level is interdependence, where you have partnerships and you work together with other people. And, you know, in America, we tend to cap out at the independence, right?
Right.
And somehow we
Right.
hold that up as like the highest and best. And we miss out a lot of times on that partnership of working together. And I know in Kenyan culture, the solidarity aspect, sometimes that can be reflected as dependence, where they
Sure.
want helped. But a lot of time, at a higher level, it can be seen as interdependence, where they're much more comfortable partnering and working together and helping each other out. And I know from my time, we struggled with that, and I think I struggled with it too, because initially I saw independence as being this very good thing,
Right.
I think partnership really is the highest and best use. So,
Yep.
and that's true spiritually, that we really can't be a strong believer and be completely isolated on our own. We can't be dependent on somebody else. We should
Right.
be other believers, contributing and also benefiting from them.
Mhm.
And it's true just in daily life, socially, with business, with everything else, that um, we're better off if we're helping others and they're helping us,
Right.
both ways. So that's awesome that you're seeing that in the ministry. Um,
Yeah. Long time coming, which is good.
yeah, yeah, definitely something we strived for a very long time. So, okay, so we've talked about the impact, which is huge, which I love to hear about. Um, for people who have heard me speak on how to raise private money, I always start with that I learned how to raise private money, raising money for ministry, right? Raising the support
Right.
for the work in Kenya. And I use a lot of those best practices or techniques really in my business today. So, in my mind, you're an expert, right? Because you have raised a lot of private
Yeah.
money or financial support to support your work.
Yeah. And
So,
I've done sales too. I forgot to mention that. I used to sell solar panels for people's houses in like just like a year or two. And I actually was able to get that job because I had what they considered sales experience by raising money for going to the field. So I said, "Did you ever do sales?" And like, here's the budget I raised. Like, oh yeah, you can sell.
all right. So, what are some tips that you would share? Because we have very many people in real estate want to raise money
Yeah.
for the work, and then I also help people and teach them in how to raise money for ministry, whether that's people at our church wanting to get support for short-term trips or missionaries overseas who are struggling to raise the money for the work. So what are some tips you would give them or beneficial experiences you've had to help them raise money?
Yeah. When I think about support raising, it used to really, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh my goodness. It gave me such like a pit of the stomach feeling because, I was raised in the family like most Americans. You don't ask anybody for anything. You do it yourself. Um,
Yeah,
you
very
know,
independent.
yeah, yeah. If you're asking somebody for something, you don't have anything almost. But I mean, my parents never said that, but that's our culture um, that we're raised in. So, starting off the bat, I was really like, okay. And I think some of the best advice that I've ever gotten that I can give is people are supporting you because they care about you and they like you, usually. And I think that's where a lot of our support comes from. They're either connected to the work, connected to what you're doing, and they care about you. Um, and also, people will support a vision more than they will support a project. Um, so that's huge. I'm loosely connected to the farms, and I don't know how you're going to do this, but basically I have this picture that I show almost every time where there's this flat desert. And then I just turned my back like 180 degrees, and there's the farm, and it has everything that you remember: sorghum, watermelons. I mean, in the middle of nowhere. And what I try to tell people, and it's what I truly believe, is that God can make any desert into something fruitful. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the desert life of our spiritually deserts or whatever we have. We're trying to get to that point. And that's really been my vision. And that's what I tell people. And people will latch on to that. And they'll realize, yeah, that's what we want to help support. That's what we want to help you do. So, I mean, instead of saying, well, I want to help get some financial investment for this and this and this, find out what your vision is, find out what your focus is, and mix that even with the people who like you, just who gives you just because they like you, like my mom, my dad, oh, we'll support them, it's our son, and we love them, and I could do no wrong. That's not true. Might be true now that I have grandchildren, it might be true, but before that, that's not true. So,
Good call.
but basically, you have that, and you're always going to have that investment. But getting past that, and then also showing people, hey, this is my vision. It's bigger than me, and I want you to be a part of it to help me get to that, and also to help them get into that vision. So, and that's what I did with solar panels. I could sell things that I cared about, and once people see how much you care and the vision that you have, I think that helps a lot.
I think that's huge. I mean,
that's what we
if
did.
that's all somebody gets from this whole interview, they will have benefited from that. So,
yeah, I can't sell vacuums, so I don't care about vacuums, but I think green energy is really cool. And I think, yeah, I can sell that. But I still don't think that's as great. And that goes back to kind of connecting to the other question is why I still do this. I believe in that. I believe that this is where I'm supposed to be. I believe like we still have support to raise in the middle of this, in the weird time in our history. The market went down and it's back up, but we're still like, what's going to happen? I still have that feeling. I know that God's going to take care of me. And I know that as long as I keep sharing his vision and what God has put, and people will want to come alongside it. So that's that. And the other piece of advice is don't get too worried about, I got so worried about, oh no, someone's going to call me back. What did I say that was wrong? Like at first, like when I was like 19, what did I do wrong? What did I do this? And, just following up is huge. That's huge. And it feels really invasive at first. But hey, I talked to you last week about this, and that was the hardest corner for me to turn. But yeah, I mean, really, what it all boils down to is vision to me. And if you want, like I think I already mentioned this, and sorry if I did, but make the vision bigger than yourself. Bigger than, hey, these are, and then that should be obvious, but sometimes it's not. Even if you say, and whenever I word things, and I do this intentionally, look, come see what God's doing in Turkana, not what is Eric doing in Turkana, or come see what like whatever real estate. I'm so bad with real estate investments. I don't even know how to bring it around. Maybe you can help me. But go ahead.
But I think, three key concepts you've put forward is casting a vision, right?
Yeah.
Too often we get bogged down on the needs today or the problems today, and people want to see what impact are we going to have? What's the vision we're working towards? Where are we going to be moving forward? Huge. And number two, you invite them, you present them with this opportunity to partner with you, right? This isn't a work when you're casting your vision, your words, this isn't a work you're doing. This is work God's doing, and you can join in, right? So partner along, join us. And thirdly, follow up. It's relational. People don't respond immediately, and it's not harsh, or it's not like a hard sell that you follow up and say, hey, how you doing? Have you had time to think about it?
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And you may be surprised, but those are key things that I teach on how to raise money for real estate, that we're casting a vision. We're talking about the impact that it can have for them financially. And we're giving them an opportunity to join in with us. So people want to be involved in real estate. As real estate investors, we know how to do that. And so we're inviting other people to partner with us. And it's not a quick jump on board type of thing. You have to follow up with people, it's relational. You want to build a relationship with somebody, whether they're supporting ministry or real estate. You want to build up that relationship so that it's an ongoing relationship over many years or many terms in the field or many real estate deals. And I think that really overlaps well in my mind.
Yeah. There's something that missionaries are, maybe I'm not good at it all the time, but that I feel like missionaries feel the pressure of is reporting back. And I don't know if that's huge with other financial stuff, just because I'm out of my element with that. But I would suggest tell people like, hey, when someone had something big, share it. Even if it's not you, especially if it's not you. If it's just someone you're connected with, say, hey, they did this, and if you want to do that, you can do it too. Or even say, hey, they've just got this first sell, or they were able to make this much profit. Share other people's stories, and then how you're connected with them, because really people love stories, and they're everywhere. But whenever I write a support update, and I do bullet points, I don't ever get any responses back. But if I tell a story, oh, I'm so happy that you told me the story about so and so. And I think sharing your story and sharing other people's stories are huge. Um, and like I said, I don't know how much is expected of people to real estate, but I don't think it would ever hurt you to be able to share that experience. Would be huge.
It's awesome. Yeah. People relate to stories.
Yeah.
So, and, um, you know, ministry is much more than numbers. It's relationships and its impact. And business really is more than numbers too. So I think that's huge. What would you say to somebody who's in business and they're not directly involved with ministry? What would be the benefits of supporting somebody who is?
Yeah, I mean, other than being a dream of mine, I would love to be to that point sometime. Right now, I'm happy doing the ministry, but even if it's later in life, retirement or whatever, um, I think the benefit also is just kind of what we touched on. You know, telling other people's stories, investing in things that are bigger than you, showing people, hey, this is what you could do. I think it's great. I think all of it is good. Some of our I hate saying best supporters. I don't know how to say that. Some people who contact us more frequently are businesses, people who are interested in something like I keep saying this, but something bigger than themselves, something bigger than the business, showing the reach of your investment. Depending on your belief system, if you are a Christian, I can't think of something that's a better investment. Your money goes so much further. Even if you're tithing to your church, if you're giving to missionaries like me or even nonprofits in your area, those are real tangible things that aren't possible without it. So I can't think of anything I'd rather do, which obviously, I'm a missionary, so I'm a little biased. But I think it's easier to get involved than you think. And a piece of encouragement is that I feel like you could, with a few Google searches, get connected with someone who is a lot more like you than you would think, a lot more interested in the things that you're interested in, especially business's mission, um, working with leadership. Everything you can imagine is out there. So I would say, yeah, if you want to get in touch with either CMF or with even just Google searching, you can find so many things that probably more than you would imagine. There's so much out there, and with a few Google searches, like, oh wow, that's something that I feel passionately about, that I want to be involved with, and I think it makes me feel good. I support missionaries, and that's one of the best things I've ever done. And I didn't see that coming, but I got kind of, okay, I'm better financially than I was in college. My friends are in the mission field. I'm raising support. They're struggling like I was. I'll come in at some smaller dollar amount that we can afford, and just being on the other end of the relationship helped me so much. It really, like, understanding, you know, if they didn't report back every month, like I always would beat myself up about, I didn't find myself minding as much as I thought everyone else that supports me does. So I think realizing the reach that I have, like this all goes back to what we're talking about. Your network of change becomes so much bigger. Like I support people in Malawi, one person in downtown St. Louis because I'm not here, so working in inner city. Other people in Uganda, and I'm in Kenya while all this is happening. So I think that's a huge point too.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That you're able, through that partnership and not trying to do everything yourself, through
Right.
financially supporting missions or ministry, supporting through prayer, supporting through encouragement. Anybody's able to be involved in work all over the world.
Right.
You can impact your community, but you can impact another part of the country or another part of the world. And it really is a way to be involved in something much bigger. and to have an impact that's much bigger. So, and related to business, our staff had lunch last week, and I presented a newsletter from CMF talking about the progression of the ministry in Turkana over the years and the impact that it's had. And, our staff knows that a portion of the rent goes to work in Turkana from all the units. And so they're excited to hear the update and know that, their efforts, maybe they don't see the results every day in Kenya.
Right.
They're dealing with a problem tenant or a complaint or something like that. But they really like knowing that because they do this work here, the profits are impacting people on the other side of the world. And so
Absolutely.
I think that's another benefit for any business who wants to try and get involved in supporting ministry, that it is a way to unify your team. It's a way for your team to really feel a part of something bigger than the profit and loss statement or the balance sheet, so I think it's a really good opportunity. So,
yeah, I agree.
All right, Eric. Well, I could talk about this stuff all day. So I really enjoyed having you on and really appreciate you taking the time, sharing your story. If people want to find out more about you and the work you do, how could they do that?
They can contact me directly. I don't know if you can shoot an email up whenever this is being all aired and everything.
In the comments or show notes, but what's your email?
My email is Eric, E-R-I-C, Pitts, P-I-T-T-S, @cmfi.org. We also have a page. It has very little information on it, but there's like a giving page, which is at cmfi.org/ecpitts. So that's Eric and Caitlin, my wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
And really, like, I think, yeah, I mean, I would love to talk to anybody about, like you said, I could talk about it all day. So if you do contact me, just tell, I have 10 minutes. We can talk more about
a time frame, huh?
Well, when you come from a family of pastors, everyone talks. So.
Yeah. And time frame coming from Kenya is much different than time frame generally.
Right.
So, well, I'd encourage anybody, if you're interested in finding out more about Eric's ministry, the work in Kenya, or Christian Missionary Fellowship, check that out. I'll put the links in the show notes or comments, and hopefully we'll get an update from you down the road as you continue the work there.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to see you guys in July. We'll see.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. Thank you again, Eric. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no
We'll
problem.
Talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.